Suspension is one of the most important parts of a modern mountain bike. How does it work? Surely there's some kind of magic going on inside. Well, I'm here at JTech Suspension in Shropshire, and we're going to have a look at how mountain bike suspension works and also how it might be improved. I'll be headed to the local trails for a shred, but not until the experts have tuned up my suspension. I'll let you know how it feels on the trails. I cannot wait. This is my lovely Intense Tracer 29. It's my long-term test bike. It's got a Fox Performance 38 fork and a Float X2 shock, and I think they work really well. But Jim from JTech thinks they could work even better. How are you doing, Jim?
Good, thanks, Will. You?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Right, let's get into it. So, what is it you do here, and how do you improve what the big manufacturers have already done to the forks and shocks?
We do a full tune, so that's shim stacks, but also looking at areas of friction. We also obviously check for any assembly faults, things like that, and we hone in on your riding style, your riding ability, the type of riding you're doing, and obviously your weight and the kinematics of the bike, so we get you the best performance that we hope we can get for you. So
you can tune a brand new fork or a brand new shock, yeah, or you can do service and repair and then tune at the same time.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, this is my bike. So what are you going to do to my fork and my shock today?
Yeah, so today we're going to custom tune both, but we're also going to add in on the fork, we're going to add in an Andriani piston kit in there. So that increases the oil flow in your damper. And on the shock, we're going to fit a WPS piston kit, which again increases oil flow. And we'll go into the details a little bit more later, but it changes the flow dynamics in there a bit as well.
All right, so what's the first job?
So first job, get it all off, get it washed and get it stripped down.
Let's do it. Okay, so here's my fork, like an exploded diagram down on the bench. What are you able to do to the fork to improve its performance for me?
Yeah, so on this one we're going to change your piston in your damper, your dynamic piston, from the standard one to an Andriani piston. The advantage of this is there's more oil flow on the Andriani piston, and also the way that the oil pushes against the shims gives it a different dynamic. So we're allowed to generate more mid-speed damping, which is we kind of refer to as the speed of damping where you're putting rider inputs into the bike, where you're forcing it into backsides and things like that to generate speed, and through corners to generate speed out of a corner. We can raise that force up through compression damping, but then the design of the Andriani piston then allows those shims to really open out when you hit a square edge, you hit a hole, you hit a bump, and absorb that impact and not give you so much reaction back through the bars.
So just to break that down, so you would describe low speed as the bike pitching, perhaps when you're coming up a takeoff or under braking.
Yeah, and you know, pedaling movements, slow rider input.
Yeah, and then high speed would be like chatter that you're hitting on the trail.
Yeah, chatter, braking bumps, square edges, flat landings, things like that.
And then the mid speed is that speed in the middle where perhaps you want to do a bunny hop, or you want to pick up the bike.
Yeah, you're really putting some input into the bike. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, let's get it back together.
Great.
Okay, so the fork is nearly back together and it's time to put the oil in. Is this just normal oil like you get down the shops?
No. It's a special oil that we use with a special additive in there. So the additive that we use has Teflon particles in there, but not standard Teflon particles. They're micro ground that will adhere into the surface roughness, into the surface pores of your stanchion, your air shaft, everything that slides. They'll drop into those little pores in the surface, and they're also negatively charged. So they basically magnetize themselves to that surface. So they adhere to that surface, which creates this film of Teflon on there, which not only makes it last longer, so you get less wear, but critically it reduces friction.
So here's my shock on the bench. It's as disassembled as it needs to be. And what are your first impressions? Is it in okay condition?
Yeah, it's in good condition. There was quite a bit of oil, quite a bit of air in the oil, which we don't want, just down to a seal fault, but we can rectify that.
What other improvements can you make to my shock other than just servicing it?
Yeah, so what we're going to do here, we're going to actually replace the pistons in there for a WPS piston kit, which dramatically increases the oil flow in the shock and how much it circulates the oil around the shock, which helps us control the damping better, and it also helps the shock stay cooler.
And WPS, that is a brand that you have and a piston that you make to replace Fox's piston.
Yes, yeah, WPS is our own brand.
Okay, let's compare the two pistons side by side and you can tell us what the difference is.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So on the base piston, we have the compression flow is through 3 quite small ports, and on our WPS piston, it goes through 3 much larger ports. So they're around about 3 times as much flow through there, which allows oil to circulate around the shock much more.
How did you come up with the shape of that WPS piston?
Yeah, so it's a combination of experience and testing, really. So over the years, we've worked with lots of different riders, lots of different products in mountain biking and motorcycling. So we've got a lot of knowledge of damper dynamics and piston designs, etc., flow rates, etc.
So we've come over to this corner of the workshop and this amazing looking machine, it's not a guillotine, is it?
No, it's a dyno.
So what's a dyno for? What do you put shocks in there and then find out?
Yeah, so we measure forces of friction and damping and spring rate.
And what do you do with that information?
So with that, we're just looking to see if, in this case, we're looking to see if we're reaching the values that we're trying to achieve, which I've calculated from your riding weight, your riding style, your riding ability, type of riding, and obviously what bike it's on as well. So
this is my finished shock, and you've got a graph there that tells you if it's working as you expect it to,
yep,
and as you want the shock on that bike for
yep,
me to work.
Yep.
And why do you fill this here with nitrogen?
The difference between nitrogen and air is that nitrogen is more inert, so it's more stable, which means that at higher temperatures, so as that shock gets hot, the pressure doesn't increase as much, so it stays much more consistent.
Jim, what are your top tips so that riders at home can experience top performance suspension all the time?
Sure, yeah, get the basics right to start with. So set your sag as per the manufacturer's recommendations. That puts you in a really good ballpark. Then set your rebound. So you want a nice fast rebound, but without the bike lifting off the floor. And get it balanced front to rear. And after that, start working on your compression damping, but don't work on your compression damping until you've got those 2 things right. And from then on, it's maintenance. Maintenance is so important to performance. If you don't maintain your suspension, performance will fade over time. You'll get more and more friction as the oils break down, dirt, ingress, that sort of thing. And friction is the biggest killer. So keep those stanchions clean, keep them lubed up with a fork maintenance spray or oil, and you're good to go.
So here we are, fork and shock, shiny, serviced and ready to ride. Let's hit the trails. We're here at Hopton Woods near JTEX HQ to give the fresh fork and shock a real test. So first impressions are the suspension feels really smooth and supple. They've taken a volume spacer out of the fork as well, so I can feel myself using more of that travel. And on the rear, the shock feels really bottomless in the mid-stroke. You feel really suspended, and then there's a platform to push off. So exactly what Jim described really, is quite impressive. These trails here in Hopton are super bumpy. Like, we've been riding the black downhill track, which is loads of roots and braking bumps. So it's a great place to test suspension. There's not a lot of grip because it's greasy, and the huge holes mean you're really testing the max of your fork and shock. Jim, thanks very much to you and the team for taking us inside and showing us all we didn't know about suspension.
No worries.
I'm sure I'll be back to ask you a load more questions.
Yeah, no problem. Welcome anytime.
Thanks very much. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for new MBUK videos dropping every Wednesday. We're going to give the new fork and shock a real seeing to. That's not what I want to say either.